our student sheet 2.3 pulled up. Looks like this. So we're going to go over this together just like we did the other day with student sheet 2.2. I gave you guys the opportunity to work on that on your own. And now that you guys have had a chance to do so and hopefully watch the video a few times, we're going to go over student sheet 2.3 together. I'm going to go through the responses, and if you need to make any corrections, feel free to do so. So first thing we got is the steps of the traditional scientific method. And as you see, I already have the steps labeled here. In order, 5 traditional steps. First thing we're going to do with any lab activity or experiment is state the problem or question. Then we would propose an explanation to that problem or create a hypothesis, which is a step that most of you guys are familiar with. And then after we hypothesize, we're actually going to make observations, take notes, collect evidence. That's the experimenting part. Okay, most of the times that's the fun, hands-on part of the lab or activity. And then once we've experimented and we've collected our evidence, we have our observations, we will analyze our data. Okay, so that's when we kind of look over the data to kind of notice trends, sequences, things of that nature. And then once we've been able to analyze our data, hopefully we'll be able to draw a conclusion or come up with a response to our problem or question. But if not, that's when we revise and we repeat the experiment. So those are your 5 traditional steps to the scientific method. So now what we're going to do is we're going to compare these steps to the steps that were taken by Dr. Goldberger. So first thing is, what was the problem or question that Dr. Goldberger was trying to solve or find a response to? Well, he was trying to figure out what causes pellagra. That was obviously the main problem, right? So then what was his hypothesis to the cause of pellagra? So what was the main reason for his rationale into what was causing pellagra? Well, he hypothesized that an inadequate diet caused pellagra, or other words, lack of nutrition. So again, if you guys need to make corrections while going through this, please do so. That's why we're doing this. So what was the evidence that he was able to collect, or what were the experiments that he conducted? Well, if we recall, he conducted 2 clinical trials, right? 2 studies where, he fed orphans. We'll use the orphanages as the main one. So he fed orphans a balanced diet and observed its effect on pellagra. So remember, he went into the orphanage. He noticed that there were plenty of orphans that were developing pellagra, but the staff was not, so he knew it wasn't contagious. All right, so he decided to kind of switch something up. He was like, he looked at their diet and what they were being fed wasn't very high on nutrition, vitamins, minerals, so forth, so he decided to switch that up, feed them a more well-balanced diet, and he observed the effects that it had on pellagra. And while conducting this clinical trial, was he able to collect data? Was he able to analyze data about the orphans? Of course he was. So Dr. Goldberger recorded and analyzed data about the orphans. Now, was he able to draw a final conclusion about his investigation with the orphans? No, he wasn't. So that's when he was able to obtain more evidence by conducting an experiment with prisoners. Okay, So we would say he did not draw a final conclusion, was able to obtain more evidence by experimenting with the prisoners. Hope you guys can see that. I tried to use red to make it a little bit more noticeable. So now we have our traditional steps compared to our steps taken by Dr. Goldberger. Now we are just going to comment if each step is the same or different. Okay, so step 1, state the problem or question. Do we have a problem or question here? Yes. So step 1 would be the same. Step 2, propose an explanation or develop a hypothesis. Do we have an explanation as to what was causing pellagra or a hypothesis? Yes, he hypothesized that it was inadequate diet that caused pellagra, lack of nutrition. So those 2 steps would also be the same. Collecting evidence or experiment. Does he have an experiment here? This is where he conducted that clinical trial, that study on the orphans, where he fed them a balanced diet. So these 2 steps would also be the same. Again, please make sure you're following along with me. This should be in your activity 2 note in your science notebook. 4th step, almost finished, guys. Analyzing data. Was he able to record and analyze data about the orphans? Yes, he observed the effects that switching up their diet had on the orphans, so he was able to analyze and record that data and look it over. So these 2 steps would also be the same. Last one, draw conclusions and, if necessary, revise and repeat. He did not draw a final conclusion, so therefore he had to conduct another clinical trial involving a different set of population, being prisoners. So if he used the same people, then we would say that this step is the same, but since he used a totally different set of people, we would have to say that this step is different. Along with, he wasn't able to draw a final conclusion. But I could see where you could get confused and think, well, he did revise his experiment. Well, considering it's a different set of people, different age range and all that, we would say that that step is different. So there you have it, guys. Student sheet 2.3. Hope you've made your corrections and included this in your activity 2 note in your science notebook. Thank you, and have a good day, guys.